Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, Haggerty10 Twitter handle. You know that by now. I'm joined today by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW Twitter handle and Alison McConnell. How are you doing, guys? Is it a wonderful Wednesday where you are?
I'm good, Tony, aye. I'm welting in the heat.
You spoke off there, Alison, and said we're just not built for this heat. I think you're right as well. Yes, it's very sunny, very warm.
Too old and too fat.
No. Don't be putting yourself there. That's not right. Right. Offers. We'll always get an offer for you. So we'll run along the bottom, the strap. It's £1 for 1 month of full access. You can see us all sweating on the pod in days like this and all sorts of other lovely stuff that we write on the website. You join us, hit that subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Now, Sean, I go away for the day, and what happens? Celtic get linked with a Barcelona player from the Messiah, Alex Collado, 23-year-old, kind of forward-thinking midfield player. He's played for Barcelona B. He was on loan at Granada last season, who were relegated, I believe, from La Liga. Now, as always with these things, we've got a scouting report up to date on the website. You can look at Stuart Ross's in-depth scouting report. It's a cracking read. Sean, is that what Celtic need?
Oh, right in with the colour question, is it? I don't know if it's what they need, but I'm not adverse to it. I'm not adverse to it after reading the scout report as well. There's a couple of comments already coming in, as I thought they would. Just like Pete McGee here, Collado's predominantly an attacking mid or occasional winger. Is that what Celtic need? Surely they need a defensive midfielder first. I kind of expected that kind of comment, Tony. I think it's only natural. That would maybe be the first reaction, that you're maybe reinforcing an area that's already fairly well stocked. But nonetheless, I still think, why not? If the deal's right, if it's offered right, and he thinks he'll fit in, and I'll put the link to the scouting report in the comments. It seems that he would fit in. As you say, Stuart Ross has compiled an in-depth scouting report on him, and it's not just a data and numbers type thing. Stuart was until recently an actual scout, so he's kind of looking out for things that suggest that a player would fit in with what Celtic are looking for, where he can maybe still grow, etc., etc. It's well worth a shout, and it makes for intriguing reading. As I say, I'll put the link in the comments. But in terms of, is it what Celtic need? Potentially not in terms of the hierarchy of requirements. But as I say, that doesn't necessarily mean they shouldn't go for it. It's given that he signed a new deal recently, it's reported that it's going to be on loan. Whether there's an option to buy clause inserted or not would be potentially a key factor in it.
Alison, Olympiacos and two Liga sides want him. Do you believe that if Celtic have got the chance to sign a Barcelona B player on loan, they should jump at that?
I think it's probably a bit more nuanced than that. I think it has to come down to, one, what he offers that Sean's just kind of explored there, but also how it fits into the current system. I don't think you just buy someone on the back of where they are. And at 23, you're maybe thinking, he needs to be playing, obviously, first team football. Celtic and Avenue is kind of similar to Jota, Celtic and Avenue, where he can kick and ignite his own career. Really, I think it depends essentially and first and foremost on the requirements of Ange Postecoglou, what he needs, and is this a player that can deliver something that he needs? I would agree. I think Celtic probably might be more inclined to look for a defensive midfielder, just given the players that are already at the club and the areas that they have covered. But I think it's an intriguing one. I'm not sure financially what the blueprint really would be of the deal and things like that. But I think what really it hinges on is whether he ticks the boxes for Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with Alison in the commenter that said that we need a defensive midfielder, Sean. But I guess if Celtic are looking at him, he's clearly somebody that Ange is interested in, isn't he?
You would think so. Charlie McGarvey, a comment here saying, is Moy not a defensive midfielder? Celtic need quality for the Champions League, can never have too many options. I agree with the last part. You say that all the time, Tony. Can't have too many good players. But I still don't class Moy as a defensive midfielder. I think I've kind of mentioned that a few times. He'll cover both the 6 and the 8. Might even appear in a double pivot with McGregor. But I wouldn't say he's a defensive-minded midfielder. Then again, as I say, the problem with recruiting a defensive midfielder for Celtic is that they need to be technically excellent as well. Otherwise, you're not going to need them in Scottish football a lot, like that kind of thing. You don't really need a spoiler in most games in Scottish football when you're Celtic. So there's that thing as well. Plenty of comments coming in saying great move, get him in, that kind of thing. The only other thing I would say, like the context around it is, it was an outlet called Relevo in Spain that broke the story yesterday, and it's since been picked up over here and moved forward slightly in terms of reports coming over here from Sky and other places that the club has made an inquiry. So yeah, Tony, it sounds as if that would reinforce that maybe there is a genuine interest from Ange himself, and you wouldn't inquire if there wasn't, that kind of thing. But yeah, as I say, all you need to know about Collado is on the website there. A quick kind of overview, I suppose, is he's a La Masia graduate from Catalonia. You kind of mentioned, Tony, spent most of his time with Barca B, but he was on loan in La Liga last year with Granada, albeit only the second half of last season, and albeit he got relegated. But you could argue, and in the scout report, it does kind of account for this, that the kind of team that he was playing for, a relegation threatened team, wouldn't have necessarily been playing to his strengths. Celtic would play to his strengths in that manner, more possession heavy, get him on the ball more. A few comments have mentioned that he's a winger. He's not. He's a midfielder, but he's played wide as well. And at youth level, he played maybe more wide, but certainly since he's went into Barca B and played for Granada and stuff at senior level, he's been more of a central midfielder. But that versatility could help, especially with Celtic. As I say, a lot of the time it's going to be trying to break down low blocks, and a player of his ilk, a kind of silky player, being able to fill in either midfield or wing would be beneficial. And even just in that 5-month loan spell with Granada, he was a centre mid, right wing, left wing, and centre forward at one point. So that kind of tells you the versatility is there.
Alison, are you like me that you can't get enough quality players in your team? And if this is an option that Celtic can utilise and he wants to come, then yeah, it might be worth doing it for a year and getting them playing.
I think it's about balance. I think I would agree with the essence behind your comment that you want to bring in players who are capable of elevating the standard within your squad, who are capable of playing at a higher level and that are better than what you already have. But I think it's about ensuring that you make room for everyone. I don't think there's any point in investing in players and then you've got guys maybe coming and sitting on the bench. I think it's about not just the balance of your team, but about the balance of your squad and making sure that everyone stays happy. I think that can be quite a tricky balancing act to get right when you have a number of players, and especially a player like this who needs to play. He's a player that he's 23. He needs to find a home. He needs to be playing on a regular basis. He needs to be playing competitive football, and that will be the impetus behind any move that I'm sure he makes, is that there's some kind of assurance, if that's the right word. I'm not sure MD can give a genuine assurance, but he'll be wanting to come and basically have regular first team football.
Sean, I'll say 2 words to that, and those 2 words are going to be Charlie Musonda. I've been in the movie before with a wonder kid or a wonder.
I don't know about that. He's 23. He's not quite. I mean, Charlie Musonda was what, 19 was he when he came up?
But I'm talking about, in fact, that it's Alison.
Good debut though. He had a good debut, Tony. Remember that?
I think he might have been older than that. I think when
was he older than that?
Was older than that? Huh?
Yeah, I thought he was. Yeah, and talking about
either way, I don't know. It's unfair. I think it's unfair.
No, I'm not talking. I'm just talking about like kind of the situation where Charlie Musonda came in and there was much trumpeting and a big fanfare. I think Collado would come in with the same kind of thing, and as Alison said, nobody's guaranteed to play football, and it ended up being a disastrous move for the player and the club. So you do have to look at these things.
Maybe looking at that glass half full, the last person to come on loan with a brilliant youth pedigree and wonder kid status that didn't quite work out was Jota, and that certainly worked out for Celtic. So
that's the yin for the yang. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Pete McGee's also been persuaded already. I'm not here to make the case that he would be brilliant, by the way. I'm just saying that the scout reports, it makes intriguing reading. It's a couple of comments coming in. Patrick McLaughlin pointing out that Granada have done okay the last couple of years. They were 9th, I think, the season before last, but they did get relegated last year while Collado was there. Plenty of things. There was a couple of stats things coming through saying about the heat map. Mahesh Raja saying Collado's heat map was predominantly right side attack. It's actually right half space, technically. So it's like where Matt O'Reilly operates a lot of the time. So it's not really right wing. But as I say, you can cover there.
Right half, did you say there, Sean? Right half?
Right half. I'm going back to the 60s.
What era do you belong to, Sean? I mean, yeah, your old man talk about right halves, your granddad.
Edward of Oz, trust the heat map. That's what I always say, Tony. Trust the depth chart, trust the heat map.
I think Alison's trusting the heat map today. I think again, it is quite exciting, but to see the kind of players that Celtic have been linked with, guys like Collado as well, it would be an exciting project. I was being a bit flippant there when I mentioned Charlie Masonda, but if he were to come in, Alison, it would excite people, wouldn't it?
Yeah, although I think most people are, I think you get to a certain age and you're probably not too blinded by where people have come from. I think sometimes people can see a big name like Barcelona and you think, wow. Mm-hmm. I think most people now kind of want to judge themselves. They want to wait and see what's presented in front of them and then make an assessment. And I think maybe Jota is a case in point. I think that would maybe augur some optimism, the fact that Celtic identified a player who would fit into the kind of style that they wanted to play, and the move came to fruition, and it was a very successful scouting network and worked out for all parties. I think that would maybe embolden people to think that the same thing could happen again. But in terms of just being a wee bit overawed by someone's background and where they've come from, I think people want to look for tangible evidence that's presented on the park.
I think, Tony, that's a great point, Alison, because I think I do agree. I don't even think it's necessarily an age thing. I think it's just in general the way that it's going and the way that sports journalism and stuff is going, that there's such in-depth reports like the stuff that I've put up that Stuart's got on the site today, that you know so much about the player and their strengths and weaknesses before they come, that it isn't. Yeah. You're right. It isn't just looking at it's Barcelona, therefore he's too good or he's going to be brilliant, that kind of thing. I think there's a genuine interest in actually asking what they're going to bring, and I think people are a lot more realistic in that sense nowadays. But
I think because you see all that information you've got to hand and all their stats, the thing that you want to see is actually the eye test, isn't it?
That's it's always a balance in it, Tony. Yeah,
because everybody, as you say, the technology now, you've got everything at your disposal, Alison, and then you think, okay, on paper this guy fits the bill, ticks all the boxes, fairly old, isn't it? Can he play?
But can they play?
Exactly. The only way you can judge if they can play is if you actually see them in the flesh. And a lot of players will be signed on the basis of data and analysis alone. No, but you want to see. Now I'm thinking, well, if Celtic are really interested, and the way the manager signs players and he signs good people, he's clearly seen them. There's an interest there, so he brings them in to do a certain job in a certain position. So now I'm curious as to how Collado plays, Alison. I just want to see him play if he comes.
Yeah, and that's a big if. I think I think sometimes there's so much talk around prospective signings, and it is just you are really taking a flyer. I'm not sure how much there is in it. I don't know how plausible a move it is. If it is and it comes to fruition, then I'm sure people will be keen to see just where he fits, because if you look at the options that are already available there's quite a few and there's a few that have made a fairly compelling case for regular inclusion already.
I think you make a good point, Tony. There's always got to be a marriage between the data, the video analysis, and the video analysis technically is an eye test, but I do know what you mean in terms of actually seeing them, seeing the cut of their jib in person, all that kind of stuff. It's got to be a marriage between the two of them, innit? And
of course.
I mean, you do hear of things where players have been signed on the back of recommendations and video analysis alone. But nowadays, especially at a club like Celtic, I don't think that's necessarily that they do kind of marry it all up. But there's actually, I don't know if you saw me tweeting out about it yesterday, Tony, but there's an interesting wee kind of quirk of fate if he does end up coming to Celtic, of course. But he actually played against Celtic before.
I did see that
in a 4-1 UEFA Youth League win for Barca at Capello back in 2016. And in that Celtic youth side, Anthony Ralston, Alison, this is the kind of thing I look up. That's the kind of daft stuff I just Google. In that Celtic youth team was Anthony Ralston, Christopher Ayer, Mikey Johnston, among others. Jack Aitchison scored the Celtic goal. Collado got the last 20 minutes at right wing. So yeah, it was just one of those things that I kind of I searched them in the picture system. That's capital. That's just up the road. So I looked up the game and stuff like that. 4-1 defeat for Celtic.
All glamour when you're at Barcelona.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. They must have looked at Kaplan and thought, right,
I've made it.
Good training ground. Where's the game taking place? There you go. Now, moving on, Alison. We move on. I forgot to mention this on Monday with your good self, and it was the women's start to the league. Celtic women won 9-0 against Hibs. As starts go, that's quite impressive.
Yeah, it was interesting. All top three top women's teams all got all steamrolled over opposition. Rangers winning 14-0, Glasgow City 7-0. I think there's a real disparity within the league. I think you almost have two leagues within the league. You've got the top three, and then you've got everyone else. And there is a move towards increasing the professionalism in the league. Hibs have kind of made inroads this summer to professional contracts. Kilmarnock, I think, have offered a couple of professional contracts. You can see the movement. You can see the trajectory of the league and where it's going. But at the minute, there's a very clear line between Celtic, Rangers and Glasgow City and everyone else. Just in terms of the resources that they have, the players that they've been able to bring in. And I think you'll see that reflected in the league table too. I think you'll see results like that. I'm not sure how good it is really for the overall image of the women's game. I think you want to be aiming for a competitive league and competitive fixtures if you want to keep encouraging people to go along. And I get it if you're from any of these camps, you're thinking, look, we can only go out and play what's in front of us, and we can only go out and do the best we can from the perspective of the league. I think you want to be making it as competitive as it possibly can be.
Sean, 9-0, as Alison said, but Alison makes a lot of valid points there. Basically, it's the top three and the rest, isn't it? And in terms of competitiveness, it might not be great for the image of the women's game.
Yeah, I can see the point with that. But 9-0 on the opening day, just taking it from a Celtic perspective, 9-0 on the opening day of the season against the team that finished one place below you last term sets a right good tone. I mean, it was hat-tricks for Jacinta and Larissa and a double for Gallagher, and I think the other one was an own goal. But, of course, Alison's right to point out that Rangers won 14-0 and Glasgow City won 7-0, so it basically reinforces that gap between top three, and that it's expected to be a three-way fight at the top again, really, isn't it? So we'll do kind of updates on the Celtic women's team and stuff and see how they got on, but it's it's a tone setter in the best sense of the word, I would say, because as I say, it wasn't a newly promoted side that they beat, it was an established side who finished one place below them last season. 9-0 is a massive statement.
Yeah, I mean, you've watched a lot of women's football, Alison. You saying there that it's kind of those three that are breaking away from the rest, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's been reflected over the past 3 seasons. I think since there was a drive to move Celtic and Rangers towards a professional structure and really close the gap on Glasgow City, who dominated the domestic landscape for so long, I think that's been reflected in league tables if you look back at recent seasons. And you can see the games between these three all tend to be very close, to be very tight. There's not a huge amount between them when they play one another, but I think you can see a very clear gap between the resources that they have and the rest. And as I say, I think clubs are trying to move towards a professional structure. Hibs are in a period of change in terms of offering professional contracts to a number of players. Celtic done that a few years back, and I think you see the change in the league when players aren't juggling other commitments, they're not juggling career commitments, but all of a sudden your focus becomes on just training and recovering and playing and everything that goes round about it. I think you definitely see that reflected in performances and standard, but it takes time.
I think, Tony, I mean, just going back to the results thing as well, like, don't want to make too much of it, because 14-0, obviously, right, fair enough. 9-0, I mean, Celtic won 9-0 against Aberdeen, remember, 2010, but Celtic, the men's team, I mean, also had a 6 and a 7-0 last year and stuff. We thought at a couple of occasions, Tony, they could do 10. I wouldn't read too much into that. And even down in England, like Man City and Arsenal win 6-7-0 sometimes regularly during the season and stuff. So I do take the point in terms of the optics that it might reinforce, but I think that would be reinforcing a bias that was already there, that kind of thing.
I would agree with that as well.
So
I just think overall you want to have a competitive league. I think it's a
good
thing to have. You know, you want surprises. You want you want 94th minute winners that change the course of a game. You know, that's the drama that brings you back.
Definitely. Speaking of drama,
the segue.
There was a comeback last night. No, not that one. I'm talking about Albion Rovers 2, Celtic B 3 in the Challenge Cup last night. Well done to Celtic B. They were 2-0 down at one point. Haha, you all thought I was talking about a different comeback. There you go. Sean, Celtic B did themselves proud. That's a great result, isn't it?
It was, 2-0 down after 26 minutes. Came back to win 3-2, and I think it was like the 50th minute the winning goal. It wasn't like a last minute smash and grab. They just got themselves back into it basically immediately. Against Albion Rovers as well, who are a League 2 side. All right, they're bottom of League 2, having lost both of their games so far, but regardless, it's technically a tier above where the B team are usually playing. Interestingly, all three goal scorers, Tony, were players who have recently been involved with the first team. So Rocco Vata, Boston Lowell, and Owen Moffat. Livingston B in the next round, which will be a different kind of test, but that comeback shows a bit of mettle, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was quite impressive last night, wasn't it, Alison? No matter what were you looking at?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's probably a good test for players in that position, that not to lose concentration, not to throw in the towel when the game's going away from you. I think it's an important quality that serve them well if they go into first team football, be that at Celtic or elsewhere. I think you need that kind of mentality. I think you need that strength of character to dig in when it's not going well and try and pull yourself back. I think it speaks volumes for them. And the boy Rocco Vata, I think is the one that really looks as though he's knocking on the door of the first team this season. I think he kind of looked well in pre-season. He's shown up well in international games for the Republic of Ireland, and he seems to have started the season particularly well for the B team.
I made the point at the time when he played in the first game against Viner Victoria, Sean, what a goal he scored.
He took it well.
He ran about 30 yards and then rattled it into the top corner as if he was doing it in his sleep, So I agree with Alison. I think I've been impressed with what I've seen so far of Rocco Vata, and he could be someone who could make some first team squads in the course of this season, I believe.
I would like to see that. Obviously, it's difficult for him when you look at the options ahead of him. For James Forrest, Leila Bada. All right, Mikey Johnston potentially might be leaving on loan. But then on the other flank, obviously, you've got Jota, Dice and Maeda. So it will be difficult, but I would like to see it. I think I agree with you there. He's actually obviously the caveat with pre-season, especially with the Viner Victoria game, was the level of opposition. But what I found telling was James Forrest, who's actually technically a competitor for him to get game time, specified Rocco Vata and his attitude and his intensity and how ready he feels that he is when he trains with the first team. A few weeks ago, he specifically mentioned Rocco Vata as a guy to look out for, basically. And you don't want to say that James Forrest anointed him or anything like that, but I just found it interesting that that's who he picked out, even though technically it's a competitor for minutes if he gets into the squad.
Of course, but I always like to see a youngster coming through, graduating through the system and making their way into the first team, like James Forrest, like Mikey Johnson, and others before them, Callum McGregor as well. So, it's future's looking bright for Rocco Vata, Alison, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. And I think fans love seeing homegrown players come through. They like to get a look at them. And you would like to think that, I would absolutely take the point that there's a fairly significant queue in front of them. But you would like to think as the season goes deeper, that there's maybe just a bit of exposure on the bench or being in and around first team squads, because I think that can be important just as a learning curve too. And he's very young, so I think he's still only 17. He's very young, but he certainly looks as though he's got a bit of quality.
Excellent. Well, Celtic roll on down 77 to Kilmarnock Rugby Park on Sunday. We'll preview that in the coming days. Hoping to make it 3 wins on the spin, Sean. Keep up the decent start to the season.
Yep, we'll preview that. What day is this? Wednesday?
It's
Next
Wednesday,
couple of days,
Sean, yeah.
Friday probably. Losing track.
It's
Actually,
that's done.
before we go, Tony, I'll actually plug another piece we've
Oh,
got on
yeah.
the site
Go
because
on,
I
then.
found it really interesting because it's been a debate, especially since the league has kicked off in the way that Jota's been playing. So we've got an excellent piece of analysis on the site today from Alan Morrison, who has explored the kind of argument as to whether Jota should be switched to the left wing from the start going forward rather than the right, and whether he's more effective over there than the right.
Yeah.
It's genuinely an interesting reading. I'll link you up in the comments for that as well. But I'll just to go and read that. That's an interesting one.
Well, I think all the goals and assists have come from the left wing this season, haven't they? So far.
Yes, but you'll need to read as to.
No, I know that. I know that too. Yeah. The wee caveat. Alison, is he better on the left or the right wing?
I think he is better on the left.
Yeah.
I would ask the question: better in what way? That's the kind of thing that the piece deals with, because it's almost a dichotomy. It's what Jota do you want? It's Jota the creator or Jota the scorer? Seems obvious you would say the scorer, but then depends what he's bringing out of the other guy on the other wing as well. So it's genuinely, it's an interesting read. I'll just read it.
He just keeps swapping with Maida anyway. So
well, that's the thing. I mean, it's a good problem to have, because how often do we say that? And this has been since the tail end of last season, that run-in. And as I say, the front three of Jota, Kyogo, Maida, it was kind of really Maida left, Jota right, Kyogo through the middle. But after 15, 20 minutes, the wingers switch anyway. So you can kind of get both within the same game, if you know what I mean. But it's a great problem to have.
Yeah. I'll let the manager deal with that, won't he? We'll all let the manager.
If you do that, we've nothing to talk about, Tony.
But I think the manager knows slightly more than me.
I don't know. We get 11 out of 11 in the first day, right enough. So.
We didn't. What did we get on Saturday, or was that disrupted because of?
I can't remember actually. 10 out of 11. No,
I can't remember either. But never mind. So, well, as we'll say, we'll build up the Kilmarnock game in the days Thursday and Friday.
Yep.
Thanks for your comments, guys. Appreciate it. Always do. Subscribe to the Celtic Way. You know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. It's £1 a month for full access. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Alison, I'll let you go and enjoy the sun, or lie down in a cool room. Thanks for your contribution. First class as always. Sean,
thank you.
Take care.
Nice one, Tony. Cheers, guys. Cheers, Alison.
Thanks.